Good day, you guys. Everyone hear me okay? Perfect. All right, we'll get started here in just a second then. Got our stragglers coming on in. All right, you guys, welcome to Forward Focused. It is October, and we are only about a month away now from the election, so expect a lot of news-driven action, as we've seen here this week in particular, as we head into the next week. And it's not necessarily going to be a one-directional type of bias, although, as we've been talking about in recent months, it's much easier for the market to fall right now than it is to push higher. And that is what we were seeing going on right now. Of course, last night, Trump came out at like 1 in the morning Eastern time, announced that they have COVID-19. So that's, making the news cycles right now. And so far, we've seen some selling coming off of this, but, it's pretty normal selling. It's not something that is really out of the ordinary based upon where we're at in the overall market right now. If we're looking at what's going on the daily time frame here, as you guys can see, we had a really big sell-off going back into the beginning of September. We were hitting those extreme impulse levels up there at the top. So it wasn't really, too much of a surprise to get that pullback happening here. And we had a shift as this came down into the first support level over here with all this congestion. Popped it, and now we're just kind of, hanging around over here in a range, and we're just kind of up at that upper end of that. But it's not at all unusual. I mean, this pop up here off of the lows was really comparable to what we saw for most of these moves for impulse waves coming off of lows. So on the intraday time frame, that's where we need to kind of flip on over here right now and look at what's going on the intraday charts. And here we go. So here's the 240-minute time frame, and this is our NQ here. One second, you guys. And we hit the lower end of what was starting out as a trading channel right after the news broke last night. So news broke up here. We were already up here. And, again, not unusual size for an impulse wave up there. Things were starting to already kind of shift there on the NASDAQ. News broke, plunged us right to where that lower channel was. In fact, it hit the trading channel posted for you guys last night. It hit that like exactly. Let me kind of scroll up and show you guys that. I know my alert systems were all going off in the middle of the night. I'm like, what on earth is going on? I was trying to go to sleep, but then I'm like, oh, let's go trade. So here's what we had happening. We were actually watching this yesterday when it was doing all of this congestion, and we just couldn't get a decent short set up intraday. But once it hit that third measured move zone there between the lows, look at what happened. The timing was excellent for a breakdown. So you'll find that this seems to happen a lot where News breaks at remarkably the exact same time. The charts are already looking for a breakdown. So that's just really cool how that happens. And it happens over and over and over again. And, from that point on here, we got a good bounce. I was telling Jason and Riaz last night, we were following some Phoenix action in here on the smaller intraday time frames. I decided to go and actually get some sleep. I think some of them were already kept trading that though overnight. And then we went into a 2B here, down at this low. And it was almost a nice 50% retracement. So that makes 2Bs and things like that really likely. Shifted, we had 3 lows with a momentum reversal at the low of that 2B, and then popping back up here. So we were coming into this here this morning, and this is starting to form. As you can see, I had it drawn on this chart. It was starting to form a megaphone. In this case, a mega phoenix. We were seeing the shifting happening up here at the highs this morning, kind of that rounding off at the highs. This is actually a type of shallow avalanche up here, which is kind of hard for some people to see because, hey, you've got this higher high in here, so how can this be an avalanche, right? But what's the main feel of what's going on? The main feel is that we've got a two-wave pullback here, and then we've got a two-wave correction here. That's exactly what we look at for a shallow avalanche. So yeah, we've got a spike in here that isn't normal for a shallow avalanche, but the funny thing about shallow avalanches is that they tend to be more tricky and they're not always really textbook. So it's more following the momentum shift of what's going on. And now I really was not expecting that this would necessarily give us a strong breakdown. In fact, I told the forum, I'm like, you know what, be more aggressive here with managing this as it gets started. Use advanced trade management as it gets started. What that essentially means is that when you come into first levels that it's kind of like a do or die point where it's a high probability of holding, it's a good spot in early stages of a trade to go ahead and take partials off. Or if you don't have a lot of contracts, take everything off and then just look for an additional setup. And I'll show you guys what that meant here. So here, gold was overnight, had a really nice avalanche going into this morning too. But then here you can see we were looking at a scary ghost potential on the 800 tick charts, or head and shoulders for those of you that, are more normal and like don't fit into our crazy world here. You've all come over to the crazy side by now, right? I still think scary ghost is a much more visually easy thing to spot. So we have that is starting to form over here, but he still wasn't really forming a good arm over here on like some of the higher time frames. And this was what had me a little bit kind of, I mean, not nervous, because it's not like I was like, really like typical nervous over it, but just kind of like, I don't know, this could get a little bit hairy, is because when we look at this pop in here, look at the strength of that, and then look at how, we've often got like these corrections that are just kind of not altogether certain after a small impulse wave like that. So we had a really fast impulse wave down, a really fast impulse wave back up. That can go like this. It could go into like a bigger megaphone like that. So there was like a number of possibilities in here. And so the smaller mega lance in here, that's what can lead to like a bigger possible mega phoenix even as we go into, the weekend here. But really I was just expecting a lot of back and forth possibility. Now, since we do have a lot of speculation right now, we're coming into election, basically our last month here as we go into elections. we've got a lot of people that are going to be speculating and driving things both ways. So we can expect intraday like movement like this to be almost like a norm, but slowing down as it gets like closer and closer to the election where people have already backed off more to the sidelines. So here you can see what I drew on like the 120-minute time frame there as like that bigger possibility. But here's what I did for advanced trade management on this. So the original setup in here, what you can see is that this really didn't have that slower range right there. Yeah, we were right at even spaced on the bigger time frames. This is the smaller time frame with the two-wave move, but each of these upside moves was overall still faster in that channel. In fact, if I transect it, it actually looks more. Let me actually transect that for you. So here's our two waves up. So transected momentum. Here's the two-wave pullback. Transected momentum. Here's the two-wave back up. Transected momentum. So when we're coming down here and we're getting the short setups, this is why I'm saying, oh, you know what? Be a bit more aggressive with early management on this. It really didn't have like a smaller time frame avalanche or anything. So when it came into the measured move right here, this was also the lower end of a trading channel where it was the third test of lows. So I went ahead and I got out of all of it at that point. I said you could partial out or, you know, get out of all or, but both of those are okay. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to see how it reacted off of that level. So if the channel is like this, then great. That momentum is great for further downside. But if this had held here and gone and did like a 1, 2, 3 here, I wouldn't have wanted to do anything like that. So even though this had like a little spike here, the overall momentum was this. So when this flushed all the way back up to there, popped again, and did this, I built back into the short again at that point. And let me show you what this looked like. So see how that came right into that lower channel? There's the two-wave measured move right in there, right here. And in 2 weeks, we're going to go into advanced trade management in League of Traders. This week, we've been dealing with these subtle momentum changes. So look here, this is what I was talking about with the momentum there. Sure, it's overall forming a more gradual channel, but for the little spikes were still pretty strong, especially that last little portion. So it got off to a really kind of slow, more uncertain start there. I didn't put the fibs in here to see if that was like the 161.8% fib. We should actually go and look at that because we've been talking about this week. So let me put that in there. Let's go see where that was. The timing fib on it. The 400 tick is good. So what level do we want to see that spike at, you guys? This high right here. Where should it be? Da, na, 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 na. $161.8. So it was a hair earlier, little bit earlier there. So that also tells me, you know, maybe be a little bit more cautious. I think volume was giving me a little bit mixed signals too. Yeah, look at the volume in here. So see this volume as it's forming in here? Look at right here. What do we usually want to see there, you guys? Volume dropping. Yeah, Donna was screaming timing fibs. Did you guys hear her? She was like, come on, pay attention. Yeah, but we got a little bit of a volume spike in there as that's going up, and that's kind of like weird. You would expect volume to spike a bit here, but this whole thing usually should be dropping volume. And this is why I say volume is a good thing to watch, but it's not the do-all and end-all. So what we would normally see is a triangular shaped volume here, and then kind of draw these down so I know where everything is. We would see that dropping again here, and it kind of spiked a little bit more in there. So that was kind of weird. So I was, I'm going to take this, but I'm going to be more aggressive in how I manage this. So that's what I ended up doing. Let me go back to show you guys what we had in when I was posting. So I took more off there when it hit that measured move, but not a lot. But you can see it was kind of like 3 waves. It kind of hit a 2-wave measured move, and then that was like the little measured move there. So here's what the ES was doing at the same time. When this was forming up here, I told you guys, hey, this is good positioning on the 1500 tick for the ES because that back and forth momentum is pretty comparable, but we also had the shift in the momentum over here. So this is shifting the overall momentum again like this. So that was fine, but when we go and look at the 20,000 tick chart, what do you guys see? Really big spike here? So even this to try to get going again, to do our other shoulder on this scary ghost, it's still really early. Yeah, we can get it, but we could do a lot more back and forth action in here is what I was looking at. So it means that, the highs up here, when this took place, yes, this could pull down again, but it could just go like that. And that's actually what we're seeing now on the 20,000 tick. Let me grab that for you and show you guys that. Ooh, that gap on the QQQs was really helpful too. So here, see, it's basically just, it did that bigger range, kind of shifted, did our little ballet foot down in here. But it's just hanging out up there. And that's where that zone is up there on that 20,000. So the ES wasn't nearly as weak as the NQ was when it was going into that pattern. It still had a short setup though. Wasn't quite at 2T because we don't have like a real solid higher high there. It's just a double top. And where were we? So here is the mega lanch as we're continuing. And again, not a big volume drop inside of there. Here's the smaller scary ghost. And so here's the tilted avalanche in the smaller scary ghost here. And notice that the timing in these, when you're looking at the shoulder, looks way better than it did on that bigger time frame, right? So the bigger time frame, we're like at the equivalent of here in the bigger scary ghost. So what happened here is what we could see happening on like maybe the 20,000 and 40,000 tick charts now over the next couple of days, basically. So yeah, this pulled back in here, but it then went into much bigger range. So I said, our king and our queen are taking a nap because they're at like this level in here on a bigger time frame. Let me go back and show you that. See that? Right there. They're up at like that level. So they might nap all along in here before we get another move, which could bring, again, that could bring a megaphone like that. So we're basically just playing out this part in here right now. So this is our king and our queen. This is our 20,000 tick chart. It tells us where we are at in that bigger time frame. So our prince and our princess, they are playing around here on the smaller time frame. That's where we're getting these setups that are happening right now. So this went in. We've got, measured move going on again in here. Came back into this next level of support over here. And then we can look at what's going on our 3,000. Clear this up and take these off of here. Clear that a little better. So we had some initial support right in here. And then it went from the avalanche to the 1, 2, 3. You guys remember that series that I've talked about over the years? Avalanche to 1, 2, 3. As long as the momentum coming out of this avalanche is stronger than average, it has to be stronger than average, then you can get the 1, 2, 3. And it did it with a nice little two-wave correction in there that was very similar to what offered the confirmation up here too. Donna says she just shared it in the room. Cool. Let me grab her chart. I don't know if I've got the right one. Yep. Here we go. Hold on. I'm going to make this easier to see for you guys. So she was trading it all the way from that head up there. And then here's the avalanche. We've got kind of that continuation into a lot of fibs going on. And then there's the two-wave continuation. So this two-wave continuation right here, that is what got me back into it here. The same thing on that. And this one I just added back into. And then measured move. And I just put something on the books as it was coming into the measured move since we were going into class there. So I got filled as it was coming into it. Let me put that on the time frames. It looks like she took the 100% too. You only hope you can feel that confident. It's just seeing things over and over and over and over and over again. And as long as the momentum is fine, the probability is that it's going to get it. If the momentum starts to shift, that's where I get concerned. So this, you know, if I had been watching this more closely, I might have even held a little bit on it because this move here and then this is actually picking up a bit. So it's coming into this here and we had another kneecap here that had room for another measured move. So basically did it with kind of a really steep 2B down in there. So when we're talking about continuation patterns, if the momentum is picking up on the continuation, I usually aim for 123.6. If it's slowing down, I aim for 76.4. But if it makes it to 61.8, that usually means you'll get a measured move here to here. As long as it makes it to 61.8 on that first drop there. So what do we expect, you know, as we're going into like the next week or into the weekend? Well, that bigger time frame. So that 20,000, the 40,000, what we were looking at on those larger time frames, where we are at kind of more indecisive levels up there. So see how when I squish this up, it's trying to do that kind of mega phoenix that I drew earlier, but we aren't really like any setup for it. Maybe we get like a tilted avalanche again here. That could happen. Or we could get another megaphone in here where this ends up being more of our scary ghost. But it means I'm kind of indifferent as to intraday action right now. I think that it's really important to play the smaller time frames because the bigger time frame here, it's kind of either or. You know, we even see examples where it does this. It pulls back here, and it could still pop and just kind of treat that like an oddball tilted continuation. This is kind of a zone where we can see, you know, how long previous congestions took, where things went all like choppy. So as you can see, we're still in a little bit of an earlier stage of that, maybe like the first 2/3 here. So it could play out choppy for like another third of that as we go into next week. So let's go look at what you guys are seeing on some of the other markets. What do you want to take a look at? Now I've got the Spice Girls in my head. Tell me what you want. I'm like, oh no. Oh no, how did that pop in? Oh man. If it's in my head, it might as well be in yours too, right? Uh, check out our floating island there on the queue. So really good like gap confirmation here too that we got going on the cues. Yeah, on the 30-minute, that would be considered to be a breakaway gap. You are correct. Because you are breaking out of that channel right there. The main thing with trying to get it as a continuation that's kind of more iffy is the fact that it rounded here, and this is our first swing up. That doesn't mean that it can't. It could just treat this as like a whole zone of congestion that then keeps on going. It's just it makes it more iffy. Obviously, a better pattern that you would find in here, like for the bull side, is that this went and did like a really, you know, straight shoulder for your head and shoulder, your upside down bat or ghost. There's your little bat ears. That's for Nicole. So that would be, you know, ideal, but since it's kind of creeping up here, that shift in the momentum there, until you get another shift like that, we don't really know. It's kind of more iffy there. Because this could come down in here, create a reversal, and then do it as like a megaphone and turn back around. Or it could come down in here, do kneecaps, and keep going. There's potential on the larger time frames either way. All right, let's look at some of these other things. Netflix. Yeah, watch those impulse waves, you guys. See the size of this impulse wave on the way down? Watch that too. That can help you when you're looking at support and resistance levels. Netflix, 30 minutes. There's our lovely bat hanging upside down at the bottom. This is a beautiful momentum reversal plus there because you've got your 3 lows, 1, 2, 3, and then the plus. Inverse head and shoulders or bat, little bat ears. Here we're at a widening up zone. So you got this going into a measured move that did it with increased momentum. So this pulled back more than a third of that last rally. It makes it harder to just keep going now. So this could shift here and pull back even further, do another pullback, you know, kind of like on par with those corrections where we get a second wave of correction in here. It could go into a trading range. Don't really know. At this point, it's just going to be harder to get that momentum continuing on the upside. So what we would have wanted to have seen more here on the daily to keep this going is that this does a kneecap up here. And it's just not good that it pulled back a third of that already. So I don't know on this larger time frame here. I mean, I could see this just playing out in a range longer on the daily charts. CRM. Kind of the same thing, you guys. We have that extended measured move. So like these usually go again, like when momentum picks up, I usually aim for what? What extension do I usually aim for? And sometimes it goes past it, but I go and shift from looking at 100% to looking at what? $123.6. So this is actually a tilted check mark. So we've got our first pullback here, second pullback here, our two waves up in the middle. And this is two waves to start it. And this is where a lot of traders will count like waves of 3 and that like messes traders up more. If you think in waves of 2, you're less likely to fall into thinking, hey, this has to fail here. Because it's easier to go and shift your thinking to this is 2 waves up. Now the channel has shifted here and I'm looking at a 2-wave correction. And then I'm popping. And yeah, I'm going to be looking for the 123.6. Sometimes the 138. Just depends on how fast that 123.6 hits. And I'm going to the last low, where the momentum then goes. So you're looking at this last low over here. So at this point on this, I'm kind of, again, indifferent, you guys. I mean, this could pull in here and bounce like that. It could do, you know, something like that and go into more of a range. To get it to bounce and do like a more solid buy for traders, it would actually be better if it did pull in and did something that, you know, shifted the momentum as it came in there to get a stronger bounce as a swing trade. And so that could take a couple weeks before we really would have that potential. So in this zone, I would mostly just consider it to be intraday trading. I wouldn't be too comfortable swing trading it on setups at this point. We have a shallow avalanche in the NASDAQ kind of underway on the 15-second. This one we hit on upside measured move, kind of pulling up here. That kind of looks trappy. I want to see what the weekly on this looks like. I'm going to start with the monthly and actually go down from there. So monthly, we have a parabolic exhaustion here. Here's our 3 main waves. And again, you can also think of this as the 2-wave correction in the middle right here. So this is like 1, this is like 2, this is like 3, or how I usually do it, this is like 1, and this is like 2. This is our first correction, second correction. And parabolic. So this is a widening up zone. All kinds of things can happen as we widen up here at this high. The main thing you can expect, though, is a lot more back and forth. So it's usually a good place where you'll see swing trades happening. You'll usually find a lot of good swing trade setups up in there as things are kind of going back and forth. So let's look at the weekly on it. Yeah, I mean, a great example, look at the check mark over here. We can see this beautiful check mark. And then here is the 2-wave correction I was talking about. So you've got your first correction, second correction. This is basically wave 1. This is wave 2. You know, there's the possibility this can keep continuing. It almost went a little too strong out of there, though. Like just a hair slower I like a little bit better, but there's room on that. So I wouldn't want to go against this right now, but let's see. Go back to that daily. The main thing, and I talked about this in League of Traders this week, is that this kind of broke at an odd time. So it's like halfway between some of the bigger corrections, but it's further out than if it was just doing a 1, 2, 3. A 1, 2, 3 would have been better, actually. So the way that this broke here, it makes me worry that it could pull back in more again. So it's not the greatest timing for that breakout. Where this happened right here is not good timing. And we've talked about this last week and this week too. So better would have been if it just went with like a 1, 2, 3 here and then did another continuation there. Or if it based out further again. So the risk is that it could pull back in here. It's a subtle difference, you guys, as far as timing goes. If you go back and watch the League of Traders classes from this week, you'll see other examples of it though. So there's a fine line between it needs to go here or it needs to wait. MIK. See what I mean? Look at where this went down here, this MIK. See how that just paused right here and then took off again? It didn't pause until here. If it paused until here, that would have been bad. It would have had a harder time. So it kind of went longer than what we would expect for like a typical kneecap in that CCC. And I probably need to think on this more on how to explain this to you guys. So see this distance here, like how it kind of struggles to kind of get going? The shorter one actually has a little bit of a better chance. And then it doubles it out again and then it can try again. And that's better. So like if it doubles it out again, then it can try again. But what we want is like a 1, 2, 3, you know, where the upside, if that is like 3 bars, correction is 3 bars, and then it goes. So like if the range is extreme, like the momentum is extreme, if you have kind of even timing between each of those segments, so like the up, the correction, and then the up again, that's easier for that to go. But if this is an extreme move and it only doubles that and goes like 6 bars over, that's going to be more iffy. So if it's an extreme move, so then it would be better if it went to like 12 bars. Does that make more sense, you guys? I hope that's a little bit better description there for you. Alan helped me out with that one. All right, yeah, you totally did. You mentioned the 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's see here. FedEx and UPS. I know you are. When you guys are posting things that are clicking and like when I'm having like my memory is just like getting hung up on something, and you guys are posting things and kind of rehashing things back to me that I've said before, that is awesome. Really, really awesome. And good example here too. So, you know, that upside and then the correction, same amount of time there. then it has to double it if it wants to try to go again. But it's kind of, you got the tilted. I love the tilted doubling when it's tilted like that. That's really good. Let's see here. I'm in your head permanently. I hope that's a good thing, you guys. Even my wackiness. You're really into trouble when Sean starts sneaking into your head too. I kind of see this as like a 2T, but I don't really like the timing yet. I kind of, feel like maybe it could creep up a little bit more. Kind of be in like a creeper range here. I would stay away. Let's look at the weekly on this. Yeah, that is so steep, you guys. So steep. You might get like some avalanches and stuff intraday, but until I actually see like momentum shifting up here more, especially like a V like that, then I would be more interested, But otherwise, it could just kind of keep going like this. So this is that zone where risk is the highest for traders, right in here. When you have that extreme move, and then it's starting to shift on intraday or smaller time frames, but when you go and you look at the bigger time frames, it's just boom, like straight up. So even though you see that shift on the smaller time frames, it's not there on the bigger time frames yet. Just like we were looking at the overall market, yeah, we got that intraday setup on the short side here, intraday today, but when we're looking at the 40,000 and the 20,000, it just weren't at a great timing yet. That's what's going on with UPS here. I imagine FedEx is about the same. Dot. Let's see. You see, when we get over onto Zoom, you guys could get me into more trouble because everybody will be able to see your posts and they could get back to my husband, right? And Lincoln's wife. You guys are going to be in trouble. FedEx is the same, though. It's that really, really steep move up there. Steep ballet foot. So, these can still kind of keep going, and then you'll start to see widening up. And that's where things will start to get more interesting again. So I would basically stay away here, you guys. It's not worth the risk right now. Plug. Yeah, I had a lot of people asking about Forex lately. That's kind of interesting. Actually, there's not as many people in here as there usually is on Fridays. Everybody go and take the take the long weekend off. I know my husband did. He's out biking around the countryside. I've got to keep an eye on my phone in case he needs rescued. 1 out of 4 times I have to go rescue him. Flat tire, heat stroke, who knows? It's true. We live in the desert, you guys. So he would be out doing like a 50-mile bike ride and like suddenly before he knows it, it's 110 degrees. I'm like, really? What are you thinking? Takes me an hour to go and fetch him. Um, let's see here. Right. Oh, I'm so in trouble if he starts listening to these. Um, let's see here. So on this, again, we're kind of in that zone where it could kind of do anything. I mean, it could even creep back up here. It's pretty much a V back and forth, so it could go into a longer range. There's not like a primary main setup on this on the daily time frame. Kind of sit back and look at what's going on in intraday charts. Intraday charts could offer some good trades. Like today's gap, since you had like these two lows here, that would tell me if I was looking at, time extensions and I was looking at potential for it to continue, there's plenty of time for that to go and continue over and continue to correct. Before I would have the risk that it could break down again. And the gap itself increases the momentum on the upside. The main con, of course, is going to be that because of this two-wave move down here, it could go into a longer avalanche type of move. So continuations could be choppier, which is what we are seeing here in today. So this breakout over here, it'd be good to take in like those early stages in the morning because you've got that breakaway gap here, the two shallow moves. This is important down here. See how that has those two shallow moves and then we get the break? And then again, the timing, I can tighten up where my exact low would have been right there. The timing is really important there. So it can still keep going with that move. It's just that it's choppier once it gets up to those upper levels. So here we're getting megaphone and it's going to be easier for this to maybe do a little bit more of an intraday correction on that. We're kind of looking at like what we've got going on in the overall market. Here's like our ghost going on. That could happen in there. So not really much on like the bigger time frames here. What would I want to see on the daily for a long setup? Let's kind of back this up a little bit more. For a long setup, so we got one correction here. It's trying to do the second correction here. I would have preferred if it didn't do it with a megaphone. So I guess if it can come back down here again and shift with like a 2B, that would get me into it again. But I'd need to see another pullback here, preferably to break this channel right here. So I'd want it to break that channel, and then that could get me as like a little short-term other swing trade there. So it's kind of treating this like a sideways correction, but it's tilted to the upside. So yeah, that would be good. Let's see here. Time went fast. I spent a lot of time talking about today's market. Let's see. We'll look at the euro dollar. Go through a couple of these Forex pairs here. I know some of our YouTube peeps like to trade our Forex. The only reason I'm not trading Forex as much anymore, you guys, is just because of the hours. For me, it's harder for me. than when I was on the East Coast. Much easier when I was on the Eastern time zone. Because you've got like your European markets and such opening at, you know, early hours of the day. So I would come in early and trade those when the markets were really active. And so now if I stay up, it's much harder for me, and I've got a little guy at home too. So just timing my own schedule. And everyone's going to be a little bit different. I know, just like I traded the last couple days. I got like no sleep. European times are more important rather than Eastern time. Not really. It's just that, you know, if you're up late at night, that's when like things start to pick up more. So you got to stay up until like 3 a.m. Eastern, or you got to wake up early to trade them. Euro daily, again, we've got our momentum reversal up there at the highs. So this could go into like a momentum reversal plus on the daily time frame. That would be a really nice setup. So short term, the daily here looks more bullish, but let's look at intraday. So this could go into a mega phoenix. There is the possibility that this tries to do a momentum reversal plus, but I don't think that is as likely. Here's our 2 waves down. Here's our ballet toe. So there is that possibility, but it could still manage it with just a continuation there. So the daily here doesn't necessarily need that extra push. It could get it, but it doesn't necessarily need it. So if it did that where it had the momentum reversal plus, here's your momentum reversal. Go down in here to a plus and then come back up here for bigger momentum reversal plus. Whereas if it went a little bit faster, your spacing is a little bit better for normal momentum reversal plus. It's kind of like this zone of congestion and then this is like doubled. So that's a little bit more normal there. But I could see either one of those possibilities here. This one, your main risk is, you know, it comes up to here and stalls and maybe goes into a base, tries again at that point. This actually could be a little bit more bullish. If it goes faster, that would be better for momentum reversal plus up here. If it goes out to a little bit of a longer base, that's easier for it to hold up on a bigger time frame. I'm going to back this up and check out our weekly though. Oh, okay, we got about a third pullback there. Yeah, so kind of harder to break that because this pulled back a third of this drop or this rally. So that is going to make things harder, easier for things to want to turn back around and come back down into this zone here eventually. So some sort of bigger shift could easily drive that back down there, you guys, on this weekly time frame. You want to watch how this plays out up here. This is really small compared to the 2-wave move upside. So if it can do something like that, that could drive this down. So we really have to watch how momentum shifts up here. It's going to be a big risk there. And one last one, we'll do the loonie. Timing for this is not good for the bulls. So what I mean by that, you guys, is that this low here, if that had hit at like the 200%, whether I used this high or I used this high because they're kind of both going into the zone, watch where that is. So here's the 200 on this one. They move it over though, and I look at it here, the 200's all the way over here, so it's not there either. So there's not really a good spot for that. So at this point, if this was going to go again, I would want to see this pivot be closer to the 300. So if it had like popped here and came back and was coming into like the 300, that would be a good spot for it to break. So it did this like too early, really. So that leaves more weakness as a higher probability here. Let me go look at some of the other time frames. Yeah. So when we look at this on the monthly, I'm going to clear these. When we look at this on the monthly, what we've got is this is now essentially our momentum channels here. So you can see if it had based out a little longer, you know, if this had popped up here and pulled in here, you would have had better timing for an upside breakout because your spacing between here and what would be your first high and then when you would get your third test would be more evenly spaced. And we would just ignore the middle spike because it would be just like the early spike in this bigger correction. So if this tries to go here, it's still too early to do much of a break. And that might be a little bit confusing in there, my explanation of it. The more often you hear me walk through that, though, it's going to be easier to understand. So greater concern is even if this bounces up here, this could be just more of a head and shoulders and do another pullback in here. Why in the euro dollar don't we have a chance for a third leg up? I think we do, but it's probably going to be more stunted. Let me go look at it again, show you guys. Because we had like a 1, 2, 3. And so after a 1, 2, 3, trying to do the next, another move is more difficult. We do see examples where it happens. It's just not as common. So see here, oops, it went and changed on me. But like even here, like you get 1, 2, 3, and then it tries to go again, and it's just kind of stunted. Can't really see that one very well. There was one on the other chart, but it changed it fast, too fast. So on like the intraday, where was I looking at on this? Maybe I was thinking of a different chart. What third leg would you be looking at? So like here, this is a longer correction than here. So if you were doing like a third leg, it would have happened right here. So I'm not sure which time frame we were looking at there. So there's a little bit of room for that to still come up to that 76.4, but I don't like how this is pulling in. so fast. So if it can do that, that would bring it up, you know, if we do that where we were talking about with the momentum reversal plus, that would bring it into the zone in here, the 76.4% zone. All right, you guys, I am out of here. So thank you for joining me today. And yeah, you know, go back and watch the videos from this week because there's a lot of information in there on really how subtle momentum changes are going to help turn things around really easily for you. And I'll try to get this up to YouTube as soon as possible. And I'll see you all back here next week. I need more harassing for yesterday's video. I think it is processed. I will go check on that right now. And you guys, it looks like I paused my recording for some reason for our Forex here at the end of the session. So if anybody happened to record the entire one on your own computers, let me know. You have it, Harvey? Awesome. I'll grab it from Harvey. And I've got the study group video too. So thank you for reminding me of that. I will go get that downloaded and uploaded too. Those are my jobs here this afternoon, right? You have it? Okay, shoot it on over to me. Just drop it in my Telegram. All right, thank you, you guys. I will see y'all back here on Monday. Well, we got a holiday coming up, don't we? I'm going to have to check our trading hours. I know. I don't know if it affects our market hours or not. I know that Sean has changes in his schedule for next week, though. I don't have any big plans for the weekend, no. I'm working on some of the videos for the updated market timing handbook thingy, or market timing guide. So the new one is going to have the written portion, and then there's videos too. So I'm going to be hooking up with my admin to record some of those. What holiday? I don't really know, Harvey. I don't know exactly why they have the days off. I know my husband has them off, and Sean does too. So I've got to go look at a calendar. Things just pop up on me. You're like, what? It's Christmas? How did that happen? There's no way tomorrow's Christmas. I don't know. The days just kind of all blend together, right? I'll go check my my holiday calendar. All right, folks. Well, if we got some markets open on Monday, I'll be here. If not, I don't know. I'll update you in Telegram. Yeah. Take care, everyone.